Good evening, and welcome back to the Placid Plastic Podcast. I'm Lucas, and I'm here with my good friend David.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
And let's get into it. You got
So,
no, sorry, go ahead.
no, host first, after you.
Sorry, co-host first. I'm sorry, after you.
All right. Well, last time, we were talking about games and games we like and games we don't like. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, I feel like the popular thing to talk about is remakes and remasters. And what, in your opinion, makes a good remake? And then what would be the difference, in your opinion, on what is a full remake and what is a remaster? So let's start with remake versus remaster. What, in your opinion, separates a remaster of a game and a remake?
Well, I think this should be a pretty straightforward answer for. I think it's a pretty straightforward question or answer kind of thing. I think remasters are up-reses and quality of life changes. I think a remaster is a rebuild of the game to fit the modern climate.
Okay, and then what would be an example of a good remaster and a good remake to you?
Okay, a good remaster and a good remake. Okay, well, good remake. I think we can easily say Resident Evil 2 was a good remake.
Oh, yes.
They took the game and then they made it, and they made it everything it should have been where the technology available at the time.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. Appreciate that.
And a good remaster, though. I mean, there's probably the really obvious ones that are not actually. Actually, you know what? I don't know if they're considered good remasters because of how unnecessary they were. Like The Last of Us remastered and Spider-Man PS4 remastered. Like those, I essentially did the job right. They up-resed and were ported to modern systems, but like they didn't need it. Like it was completely unnecessary. A port would have been good enough.
Well, Last of Us is interesting because the original game released, I believe, in early 2013.
Is it really that old?
Yeah, it's a decade old.
Oh my god.
And then they had a remaster for the PS4 come out, I believe, in 2015 or something like that. I could look it up later. But then, out of nowhere, they decided to make it again recently, but in the graphic engine of Last of Us 2. And I don't know if you remember, this is about a month or two back, it got a little bit of flack because the PC version, at least, was not good on release at all.
Okay, sounds par for the course.
It just kind of seems weird from Naughty Dog's perspective because, okay, so the original game, just the original release, is a good-looking game, even though it's a decade old. It's still really good-looking.
Yeah.
Then they remastered it for PS4, gave it a little bit of a touch-up. So it looks a little bit better. You could argue that the controls are dated, which they are. I played the original and I played the remaster, and I did find, especially the cover and shoot behind cover mechanics, to be very dated, very Uncharted 2, like, if you will, and Uncharted 1. But it just seems weird that like they would decide again, hey, we're gonna take a game that's already been remastered and we're gonna essentially remaster it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they charged full price or at least $50 for the remaster.
That sounds like something I've heard.
And I think people were pretty upset about it. And of course, you could argue that maybe they did a remaster to coincide with the TV show that was airing.
It's possible, yeah. But that did, as you were saying, what reminded me of an actually really good remaster would be the Uncharted collection for PS4.
Yes.
They took all the original games, they upscaled them, and then they did some quality of life changes. They made the gunplay way better for the starting trilogy, and that was way more playable. And honestly, it was a great time going through all those. The fourth one, loved it.
Yeah, I have yet to play the fourth one. I played all three, and I did play the collection, but I've heard pretty good things about the fourth one. In terms of a good remaster, I was thinking about this the other day. So Capcom had, in the early 2000s, it had a couple of really good series going on. They had Resident Evil was still going strong. They had Devil May Cry had just burst into the scene. They had some of their PS1 titles were still popular. This was back in like 2000, 2001. So Dino Crisis was going strong with a couple of sequels, and they decided they were going to make essentially a Resident Evil style game, like the fixed camera, but they were going to do it in the samurai period. And this is called Onimusha. And I think you may have heard of it. I remember I played it a couple years back. They did a remaster of the game in 2019. And they released it for Steam, Xbox, PS4, and Switch. And the reason why I consider it a good remaster is because not only did they do like a HD re-res and made the graphics more clear as opposed to an early PS2 title, for some reason they decided to go out of their way and completely redo the soundtrack. And I didn't realize this at first. I was like, wow, this game has like some really like crisp sounding music, and like it doesn't sound MIDI at all. And like an early 2001 PS2 game would have a soundtrack that sounds very MIDI in nature, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like full on orchestra music, and I'm like, wow, this is really intense. Like, I can't believe this was the soundtrack in the original game. And no, it turns out Capcom decided we're just going to redo the entire soundtrack, and it is quite phenomenal if you compare it to the original soundtrack, which was already beloved by hardcore fans, I guess. But I just found it exceptional that they decided to go above and beyond. And yeah, we don't have to, like, they could have just left the soundtrack as is, and I'm sure the game would have been received the same. But for some reason, they just decided, no, we're going to redo the entire soundtrack, do like an actual orchestra music for the entire game. And it's like quite incredible that they decided to do that. And like, I don't think it was advertised at all, like, oh yeah, brand new soundtrack or anything like that. And they made the audio sound really good, like just the audio quality overall of the game. Kind of modernized a little bit of the controls. So in terms of a decent remaster, I think the first Onimusha was a spectacular remaster in that, because there are a lot of poor remasters that have been released over the years that were just kind of cash grabs. I think a good example was the Assassin's Creed 3 remastered, which was absolute garbage. And you can, the audience listening, you could easily go online and see tons of videos on YouTube of comparisons between the original Assassin's Creed 3 and this remaster, and the remaster looks objectively worse. Like, there's some weird filter they put in the remaster that makes everything look a little bit more like gray, and it's just kind of weird. And they did nothing to enhance the controls at all. Like, the way the game handles is the exact same back then. And I think there's some weird thing about remasters is that a lot of them have game-breaking bugs that weren't in the original, and that seems to be the case for Assassin's Creed 3, where there's just some random stuff that wasn't in the original. Maybe it's just because they messed with the code, or maybe there were pieces of the code missing. I'm not really sure what Ubisoft was doing, but that's really Ubisoft's motto over the last decade. We're not really sure what we're doing. And I think the most famous botched remaster of all time, in my opinion, is the Silent Hill collection that came out in 2012. And I think I'm sure you've heard about what they've done. For those in the audience that may not remember or may not know, essentially Konami lost chunks of the code for the original Silent Hill 2 and 3. And they, I don't know if maybe they threw it away or misplaced it, or it went into the ether, but chunks of the original game coding is just gone, just mysteriously gone. And so they decided, and instead of trying to redo areas that were missing, or maybe just try to find some sort of fix, they were going to add more fog into the game so that you wouldn't notice that chunks of the game are missing. However, they didn't do a good job of doing this, so you could easily find a way to see all these areas that are clearly unfinished because they took an earlier version of the game and used it in the HD re-release. And then they re-recorded all the voice lines and put, like, for example, James Sunderland was voiced by Troy Baker. And Troy Baker's a great voice actor, don't get me wrong, but I personally don't think he fits in Silent Hill because of how well-known and famous he is. I think in terms of early Silent Hill, the unknown voice actors kind of added to its charm of just kind of being regular people trapped in a messed up situation. And when you have somebody that's well-known like Troy Baker doing voices, it's kind of like, oh, he's in this game. And then they had some other voice actors that, in my opinion, weren't very good. Like the woman that did Maria wasn't that good compared to the original. And then there were some other issues, like the sound quality was terrible. There were speaking of bugs that weren't in the original, because they used an earlier version of the games, there are new bugs in these re-releases. Like, for example, when you kill a boss in the third game, the game just slows down to a crawl, like literally turns into a PowerPoint slideshow for some reason. As the boss is dying and it transitions into the next scene, it just turns into a slideshow, and it's just part of the it's just this is the way it is. And they never fixed it. They were just like, yeah, oh well, sorry. So that, in my opinion, is probably the most famous botched remaster.
Well, yeah, that one was definitely the one I heard the most about for sure. Like, there was definitely people like crying about the Last of Us, I guess, remaster. That was like the price was bad, but as far as it was, though minute, upgraded visuals and all that stuff. But the Silent Hill one definitely sounded like quite a shit show.
Yeah, that was. By the way, I want to just take a quick moment to acknowledge that there is a giant birthday cake next to the pool.
Yeah, it's the Placid Plastic Duck Simulator's anniversary since release, I believe.
And the flamingo has a happy birthday thing on it, too.
Yeah, there's a banner up above the pillars.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's the 1 year anniversary of Placid Plastic Duck Simulator. So
the perfect place to relax and vibe. With us.
But going back to what you said, so it's kind of interesting because there was about a decade after the last Silent Hill release. There was that between Downpour and the announced Silent Hill games back in October, like the Silent Hill 2 remake. And it's kind of interesting because the reason why Silent Hill kind of fell off the radar for a decade is because once Konami got rid of Team Silent, their dedicated Silent Hill team, they decided to ship out the game to Western developers. So Silent Hill Homecoming, Downpour, Shattered Memories, Origins, and Book of Memories all were created by Western devs, either in the UK or in the US. And I like Homecoming. The rest of the games I'm kind of but none of the Western games are as good as the first four that were made by Team Silent. And Downpour was particularly poorly received. And so, and so the famous Konami story of how they decided to go the route of pachinko machines and got rid of Kojima and et cetera, et cetera. And then they went a decade without no new console releases for Silent Hill. And then in that decade, in my opinion, you may agree, the horror genre experienced a rebirth of popularity. Games like Amnesia burst into the scene. You had the kind of the revival of Resident Evil with Resident Evil 7 and 8 and the remakes. Dead Space just had a remake, and there's been all sorts of other horror games. And I feel like the horror genre in the last decade is at a much better place than it was back in 2012. And so Konami, in my opinion, probably saw how much money the horror genre was making, and that's why they've announced all these new Silent Hill games. The funny thing is, only one out of, I believe, like one Silent Hill game is being made internally. The rest of the Silent Hill games, including the Silent Hill 2 remake, is being made by Western developers. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people are obviously hyped, like, oh my God, this is the first Silent Hill we're getting in over a decade. This is amazing. But I'm kind of in the camp of like, did Konami not learn their lesson? Like the last time they shipped out their IP to Western developers, it flopped miserably. And it's just kind of interesting that they're basically doing the same exact thing now. Obviously, things could be different. A lot has changed in a decade. So these Western devved games could be amazing. But it's just kind of funny that a lot of people aren't cautious at how Konami's like, oh yeah, we're just going to do the same thing we did last time and give our IP to Western developers instead of making a dedicated studio. And so I'm just wondering how all those games are going to turn out. I know that the team that's making the Silent Hill 2 remake, they kind of have a dubious reputation. Team Bloober is their name, and they made the Layers of Fear games, which I personally think are extremely boring and a slog to get through. So I'm a little cautious that they're in charge of the Silent Hill 2 remake, but they could make a good product. So we'll just have to see. But
is there more than one Layers of Fear game?
Yeah, there's two. The second one is just it's nothing.
I didn't realize there was even a sequel.
Their horror games are basically walking simulators. That's really all it is. Like when I was playing Layers of Fear 1 on the PC, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, I was just so bored. I was just walking around looking at things. And there was the occasional puzzle, but it was so easy that I'm just kind of like, this isn't scary. And And of course, they had the stereotypical jump scare occasionally to freak you out, but it's just kind of like the same thing. Like it's like I call it the Five Nights at Freddy's syndrome, where it's like if your only scare is jump scares, it just kind of gets like old. Like there are multiple ways you could scare someone, and if it's just something going in the screen going "Wah!" like over and over and over again, that's not going to scare me. It's going to make me jump a little bit, but then I'm going to be like, oh, like
That's
okay.
something I really respected about the now that it was, I think, mixed as far as reception goes. The Five Nights at Freddy's, the Pizzaplex game. I don't remember what that one's called. Security Breach is like, it was kind of a buggy mess. It didn't work very well sometimes, but it was less of just don't get jump scared, hide behind doors. It was, you have to sneak around. You have to try to avoid these things. They'll chase you, but you can use your limited, I don't know, your blaster or your camera or whatever thing you decided you wanted to pick up to try to escape it, navigate, hide. Like, it seemed more like a regular kind of horror game. Now, nice and colorful, but with that growing decayed aspect. I think they did a really good job creating the atmosphere. But with a little more QA, I think they could have done a much better job. But who knows how fast they were required to push it out, because that's the story of games.
I think in more recent times, the best game that I played in terms of the variety of ways it terrifies you is the Mortuary Assistant.
That's a good one.
I think that because so there are, there's the occasional jump scare, but what it really excels on is putting stuff in your peripheral vision that both terrifies you and makes you question if it was really there. Like, you may have a certain like demon or ghost like kind of peeping around the corner, and then like as you put something down, it's gone. Or as you're typing something in the computer, you'll see in literally a peripheral vision something peek over the corner of something. And then because it's far in the back, it's kind of blurry, and you're like, what is that? And then when you exit from the computer screen, it's gone. Yeah. And of course, the ambiance and the sounds are really well. I think that over the last year or so is the best horror game that I've played recently that has really made me really made me on edge. It's hard for me to play that like by myself, because usually I could play most horror games by myself, but that one in particular just really gets to me because it's so freaky at times, especially when you see something in the corner of your eye and you're like, oh my God, what is that? And then when you put something down and look back up, it's gone. Or maybe it's a little bit closer than it was before. And it's just like, oh, no, I don't like that. Or maybe you're working on a body and its finger twitches, or its eyes shoot open and it stares at you and it doesn't say anything and it's just staring at you.
Yeah,
you're frozen in fear.
The whole premise of working with a corpse and knowing it's a horror game, so you know that there's going to be some funky stuff going on there. It's that alone is enough to just kind of keep you on edge. It's definitely really well done. I feel like there's something weird going on.
What's going on?
Oh, no, it's just the bushes. There was a balloon behind it.
Oh, I see it there, yeah. Okay, so then we talked about remasters. What about full-on remakes? What's a good full-on remake besides Resident Evil 2 remake? What are some other full-on remakes that you may have played or heard about or seen that you thought were pretty well done?
Well, I'm a little disappointed I never got the chance to play the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 remake. One sec, I just realized my camera, it always defaults to having low light compensation, which essentially just lowers the frame rate in order to boost the aperture. It's a pain in the ass. I hate using it. Anyway, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 combo thing, I heard mixed things about, but it looked like it was generally well received. I don't know how you can fuck up that, to be honest, but that one I would have expected to be good. But I don't. Oh, you know what? Here's something you wouldn't expect. I've got this right on my phone. You won't be able to see it, but I can hold it up to the camera for the videos. Is the original Cosmic Pinball. Does that sound on? No.
They remade for the one they had on Windows XP. They remade that.
Yeah. So I have an app on my phone of the thing, and it works. It works great. It's got some minor bugs because I'm pretty sure it was some other person who just made it, because it's like straight ripped out from Windows XP. It's got maybe a bit of a 3D rendering to it that wasn't there before. Oh, now I'm playing it. I need to not do that. And there's music to it. I don't know if there was music before, but all the sounds are the same. All the score card that you normally saw on the top of the screen with the little dude in the spaceship isn't there because it doesn't fit the shape and size of the phone. But for the most part, it works pretty well. Sometimes it doesn't register the right, what do you call it? When you're supposed to hit a button on the side to get a mission and then go up the launch ramp to accept the mission. But sometimes you go up the ramp and it just tells you to hit the button again. And that's kind of annoying because the missions are how you get a score. If you don't do those, then you're going to be stuck in the 100,000s. But if you want to get a multi-million score, you got a balloon. A ball? It's not floating.
Oh, yeah. I said, what? I keep forgetting, too, that when I look down at the bottom, I see just the stone duck just chilling at the bottom. And is that like a golf ball or an egg?
I think it's a golf ball.
Oh.
But... yeah, anyway, that Cosmic Pinball, that's the best remake I have. I don't really have many remakes.
I'm surprised that they remade that. I definitely sunk a couple hours in that when we had an XP computer growing up. That game could get pretty addicting. I think other good remakes.
Does Skyrim count? Special edition? Or is that a remaster?
I think that falls into remasters, and that game has had like 85 different remasters now. I'm sure they'll be remastering it. I'm surprised they haven't done a PS5 and Xbox Series X edition yet, honestly.
Oh, was that? What was there? It was not Anniversary Edition, was it?
No, it was. That was the most recent iteration that came out, like I think last maybe 2 years ago, because it was 2021.
It's probably what they're going for, to be honest. Let me look at my library because I have more games on here than anything ever.
The more recent successes, even though I'm mixed on it, is Resident Evil 4 Remake. People loved that one. I don't want to go into too much of a tangent about that, but I have mixed feelings about that game. I don't think it was necessary, but the Dead Space remake was really well received, considering that Callisto Protocol was a massive failure, especially on launch.
Seeing all what they did in the Dead Space remake, like you said, it wasn't wholly necessary, but it was damn good still.
It was good. It was really good.
Oh, what about Modern Warfare?
More like
a reboot. Does that count?
Well, okay. So actually, that's interesting because they did if you remember, they did remaster Modern Warfare 1 way back in 2017 when Infinite Warfare came out. And actually, there was
oh, that's right.
There was a huge controversy with that because in order at the time, you had to buy Infinite Warfare in order to play Modern Warfare Remastered. And people were pissed because nobody wanted to play Infinite Warfare at the time, because when Infinite Warfare released, that was the same time that Battlefield 1 released. And everybody back then loved Battlefield 1. I thought it was great. And if dislikes were still a thing on YouTube, you could go back and see how many dislikes Infinite Warfare's reveal trailer got, because everyone was like, well, why are you doing this again? Why are we doing futuristic? We don't want futuristic anymore. And then Battlefield 1 trailer, I think, came out literally like a day after Infinite Warfare, and it was like Battlefield 1, DICE 1. And so I think what happened was Activision's like, well, what we could do to get people to buy Infinite Warfare if we package it with a remaster of Modern Warfare 1, which was look, it's business savvy, but it's scumbaggy, if that makes sense. I get their attention, like, this is how we move copies, but man, people, and then eventually they did a solo release. What was weird, Lucas, was during 2020, during the pandemic, they shadow dropped Modern Warfare 2 Remastered with like no fanfare whatsoever, no trailers, no announcement. They just dropped it. And it was a full-blown remaster in Modern Warfare 2. And it's quite good because they added a bunch of, not only did they remaster, but they added a lot of quality of life improvements it's kind of weird, but you could inspect every single gun in the game, and they made like custom animations for each gun. They improved the face models. They added some animations to cutscenes. Like, I don't know if you played Modern Warfare 2, the original, right? You know about the plot. You know when General Shepard, you're the main character and you're with Ghost, and General Shepard lands. He's like, "Do you have the thing?" And he goes, "We got it." And then he shoots you and Ghost. He goes, "The one last loose end." They added a couple animations where he shoots you and you fall down to the ground. He goes to grab the item that you have, and in the original, he just grabs it and that's it. But in the remake, he grabs it and you're holding on to it, like trying to take it away from him, and he rips it out of your hand. And it's like this. They added a bunch of other custom animations to cutscenes that they didn't have to add, but they did. And it was weird because they just shadow dropped it. Like, I just found it at the time, the PS4 store. I was like, wait, huh? And then I looked it up, and yeah, I think literally like the day before I found it, they just dropped it. No fanfare whatsoever.
Is that on PC? Because I might just pick that up.
It is on PC. It's not on Steam, which is weird because Modern Warfare 1 Remastered is on Steam.
It's probably like Activision Blizzard thing.
Let's see.
It's Infinity Ward, I think, developed it, but it's still published by Activision, I think, right?
Yeah, and then of course, then they had the full. You were right about how they had a reboot. In 2019, and then had Modern Warfare 2 reboot. This is their most recent game, I believe.
They also had not them, but there was the Spyro and Crash Bandicoot remakes. The Spyro one was very, very true to its original form. Just now it's really, really pretty.
So yeah, you can buy the entire Modern Warfare 2 remastered campaign for $20. But you have to get it on the Blizzard.net server.
On Battle.net?
On Battle.net, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm not getting it.
But I mean, it was. I bet you could find. I was gonna say, I bet you could find a key online for cheaper than that. But it's weird that Modern Warfare 1 Remastered is on Steam, but not Modern Warfare 2. If you haven't played Modern Warfare 1 Remastered yet, you should definitely play it. That also was really, really good.
I'd have to, because I spent more time. I played, I think, the first half of Modern Warfare 1 because I was borrowing it. And then we just ended up having Modern Warfare 2, so I played that one through. And the stories, are loosely connected. Like, they're the same characters. You can follow it. It's a big thing. But you can play the sequel without having to worry about missing out on too much of what's going on. Like, it tells the story very well. So that's pretty much what I spent the most time playing. It'd be nice to actually get some of those prefaces in the open. Oh my god, I'm such a fool. I had the ducks turned off because I loaded this up a while ago because I wanted everything to spread around, and I wanted the flamingo to get closer to the edge.
So wait, can we both toggle it? Like, it's on the top right for you, right?
Yeah, I just turned it back on.
Is it off for you now?
No.
Okay, so I think we both independently control the ducks because my meter has been on this entire time.
Has it moved?
Ducks have still been. Yeah, it's moved. Ducks are still spawning.
You've seen ducks spawn?
Yeah.
Like what? I don't have any new ducks.
Okay, I gotta click my duck real quick. How do I? Hold on.
Wait, hover over it. What does it say?
I forgot the duck controls. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So the just cycling through till I get to the new one. The ones that I've seen land, I saw the Luchador. No, the Luchador duck was here. My bad. I've seen, just slowly going through all the stuff I've seen until I get to new ones. Until I get to mine, I guess. Okay, so there's mine. So yeah, we had another Russia nesting doll duck land.
Another one?
We've had several land since we started this recording, and then we had the actual strawberry duck this time.
No, we already had the strawberry duck.
Oh, then I think we've only had 2 ducks land then.
Because you called it a tomato.
You're right. Yeah, so we and there is actually a tomato. You know what? There's a watermelon and the strawberry. Yeah. Okay, so we've had 2 land. So maybe, my meter's definitely moved. But I think maybe it slows down if one of us has a pause and the other doesn't.
Because I picture the chameleon. So there's 2 chameleons in the pool right now.
Yeah.
So that could be where the other nesting duck you saw come from. Because the nesting duck just drops more nesting ducks. But
Well, maybe it was paused.
Well, it's running now. Damn it. That's 20 minutes.
Folks, I am so terribly sorry. We're just going to go ahead and scrap the entire podcast. In fact, we're going to go ahead and delete the channel.
No,
it's been a good run.
Oh, God, no.
Oh, my God. Okay, so back to games.
Yes.
We talked about, remasters and remakes. And give me... I want to know. I want to know the Lucas Gaming hot take. Give me like 2 or 3 hot takes you have about like games or certain franchises. What are some hot takes you have?
Well, we got my Fallout ones out last time, right? Or the one before that.
Yeah, let's get some new ones going. Let's grind some gears in the audience.
Oh, here's based on the rest of our friends, a hot take. I liked the Assassin's Creed modern story. I liked where it was going to go from 1 to 2, and since I never played 3, I didn't experience it, but I was really hoping it was going to be, you're Desmond. You're stuck in this thing. In 2, you break out, and it's cool, and then they take you to this new place, and then you were going to get more of that bleeding effect until you became, essentially just an assassin, and you go against the modern... what are they called?
Templars.
No, sorry, you're right, but Abstergo, yeah, the modern Abstergo like Templars, and you're gonna, I don't know, find the apple and then some of the other artifacts so that you can destroy them or something. I don't know. I was hoping you would go into essentially a third-person Mirror's Edge scenario, and it would be cool, but you didn't. And then I hear they just killed off Desmond. I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, that could have been something cool. But you saw, no, we can pump out one of these every year with nothing good in it. Let's do that. And then it had some good ideas, like Syndicate. That was a good idea. I don't know how well they executed it, but I know it was a good idea.
So actually, that's a really great point you bring up, because the original intention of the Assassin's Creed series, when it was first planned out, was going to be a trilogy. And so the original creator and writer of the first game was the guy that had been working on Prince of Persia for a long time. And I'm sure you've heard about this before, but the very first Assassin's Creed game that came out way back in 2007 was supposed to be a Prince of Persia game. Yeah. It was supposed to be called Prince of Persia Assassins. And then they decided, you know what, let's shed the Prince of Persia label and just make this its own thing. Let's just call it Assassin's Creed. And so when they were planning the games, it was always going to be a trilogy. It was always going to be 1, 2, and then 3. And then it was going to have a story of basically Desmond and his friends stopping the 2012 apocalypse from happening. And so 1 comes out and it gets pretty good reviews, pretty good sales, pretty nothing to write home about, but it's a success. And then they make 2, because 1 comes out in 2007, 2008 rolls by, and then they release 2 in 2009. And 2 just explodes, sells a crap ton of games, makes a crap ton of money, and it's like Ubisoft's most successful game in a very, very long time. And Ubisoft is like, whoa, we didn't think we'd make any money from this. Because they were basing it off how 1 did, which was kind of, it's cool. And so the execs at Ubisoft are like, wait, hold on. Let's not do the trilogy just yet. Ezio is really popular. Let's make another game with him. And the creator of the first and second game was like, wait, hold on. I don't want to do this. I have a specific way I want to tell the story, and I want to end it with the next game. And Ubisoft was like, no, we're going to keep this game going because we just made a crap ton of money, and we're just going to keep it rolling. And so the creator of the series actually left while Brotherhood was in development, because he left. He didn't leave Ubisoft yet. He would leave Ubisoft in a couple of years, but he left the creative team of Assassin's Creed. And I was like, they betrayed my vision. This is not what I don't want to do, seek spinoffs. I just want to do 1, 2, and 3. But Ubisoft was like, no, we're going to do Brotherhood. I like Brotherhood. I think Brotherhood's great. Brotherhood got released, and it did really good. Revelations was released, And it's still pretty good. It's not as good as 2 in Brotherhood, but it's a nice little bookend to Altair and Ezio. And then eventually they're like, okay, let's make Assassin's Creed 3. But in their mind, in Ubisoft's mind, they're like, you know what? We don't want this franchise to end. I mean, we've made so much money with 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations, but we don't know how to continue Desmond's story because the writers that were on the team were not the ones that started the series. They were brought in once the creative director left. So they're like, well, what do? We don't want to end the story, but it's kind of was originally set up to be ended with the 3rd game. Let's just kill Desmond and scrap the storyline. So that's why Assassin's Creed 3 ends so badly. I don't really like Assassin's Creed 3 overall. I think like the setting's okay, and like the potential of doing an assassin during the Revolutionary War is fun. It's just the execution's bad. And then if you play, you haven't played it, but if you get to the ending is just like, okay, you did it, but you got to die. And he sacrifices himself, and that's it. That's the end of Desmond's story. He's just bookshelved, like goodbye, thank you so much, bye. And there were a lot of people that were expecting to have the storyline end at the end of 3 because that's what was promised when the series started. And basically they killed off Desmond and they were like, well, we're not going to stop this gravy train. And then they made 4, and 4 was just kind of like the plot was you're an Abstergo employee and they recovered Desmond's body and you're examining his brain and you find he had a pirate ancestor named Edward, and you play Edward's story. And then with each consecutive game, they've slowly like distanced themselves from modern day. Like I played Unity and I think the modern stuff in Unity was like not really there.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's even referenced in like Odyssey or what's the Egyptian one? Origins. And then there's the Valhalla. Is that the one that just...
That's the most recent one, yeah.
I'm glad to see they stopped releasing them like every other year. So yeah, that's cool. But man, yeah, what a waste, honestly. They could have kept it going. They could have done exactly what they did, but did it right. They could have just... First of all, if those writers were like actually in charge of what they were writing and they were like, okay, we can finish this story, they're just dumb. They're just bad writers. I would have fired them if they gave me that stuff. I'd be like, you call this writing? Like, this is how you're going to end it? You can't give it a good ending that leaves it so that there's still something that can go into the future, because you could have. Considering they were going to ditch the entire modern plot anyway, they could have just finished it off, say, great, Desmond saved the world. Now that we have that trilogy done, hey, we want to make some side stories for Ezio, and then cool, Brotherhood, Revelations, done. Like, cool, that's going on. We want to explore some other parts of the world. Let's try those out. Let's try different points in time. You know, let's hit. I think actually, did they announce they're going to do like a World War I or World War II one? Is that what's coming out next?
So Ubisoft has decided, and this is. I mean, good luck to them, but they have legitimately announced, I believe, like 10 or 11 Assassin's Creed games in the next couple of years. I'm not even kidding. And so the next one that's coming out is Mirage, which takes place in Persia, which is kind of funny that we're going full circle.
That's right. I heard people bitching about that.
And I stopped following the series after Unity and Rogue. I did not play Syndicate. I did not play Origins. Our mutual friend played Origins, so I saw the entire story through watching him play. And then I tried to play Odyssey, and I hated the RPG mechanics in that game. I thought it was so poorly done. I was like, I'm not touching. I got about maybe halfway through the game, and I was like, I'm done. And then I didn't play Valhalla. So I don't really know what's going on with the story or the community, but from what I've heard, and based on the gameplay that's been shown, Mirage just looks like more of the same. And it just seems like people are like, oh, here we go again. But in my opinion, you know, to bring it completely full circle, you want to talk about a game that needs a remake? They need to remake Assassin's Creed 1. Like that game has not aged well at all. I don't know if anyone in the audience has played Assassin's Creed 1 like in the last 4 or 5 years. That game is a slog to get through. It was good for its time. It was innovative, especially with the parkour. But my goodness, I will never touch that game again. It is so hard to play, especially this came out at the same time games like Mass Effect 1 and Star Wars The Force Unleashed and other like Gears of War. Like there are way other better games you could play from 2007 and compared to Assassin's Creed 1. And then if you want a good old school Assassin's Creed, just play 2 or Brotherhood. Like you don't even need to touch 1.
Yeah, 1 is pretty irrelevant to a lot of what you. If you want to know the story, great. There isn't one, so it doesn't matter. 1 doesn't
or just play
matter.
Revelations. Just play Revelations. Like they reference Altair's life, so just play Revelations if you want to catch up. You know
that reminded me of another potential hot take about Mass Effect.
Here we go.
So right now they said they were gonna remake or not remake. They were gonna reintroduce Shepard right into it. First of all, let him die, her die. It doesn't matter. Let it end. Let it finish. And Andromeda, if they weren't fucking stupid, they could have actually fixed the damn game and then went on to a sequel. They had an interesting premise and they destroyed it because they're stupid. They were going to do multiplayer. They canceled the multiplayer. I loved Mass Effect 3's multiplayer. I love the little...
Mass Effect 3 multiplayer rocks.
Yeah, your small squad, you're essentially doing your Gears 3 Horde mode, minus all the fun parts about Horde mode where you can do defenses and stuff, but oh well. They could have done so much with Andromeda. The movement was so fun. I loved the jetpack mechanic. I thought it was fantastic. Adding everything I wanted in the Mass Effect as far as control scheme went, that was what I wanted to see. And it was there. The game was kind of boring, and the characters were kind of annoying, but they could have fixed it in a sequel. They could have fixed all those stupid bugs with a patch. They could have added if they weren't so damn greedy. If EA wasn't, I think that was the last of EA being, we're going to be dumb idiot greed hogs. I think that was, for now, that was their last bit. Obviously, with their announcement of Sims 5 being a free-to-play from the get-go, they're going to still be greed hogs. But seeing games that have come out as like Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order, those were good games that weren't loaded with microtransactions. Like, they had deluxe incentives, but they weren't like, oh, sorry, you can't enjoy. They weren't Gollum. They weren't, oh, you want to experience the game? Well, you have to pay if you want to have people speak the right language. Oh, you want to learn about the lore? Oh, you have to pay in order to unlock the frickin' encyclopedia. Are you kidding me? That was just dumb and scummy.
That's pretty dumb. I'll tell the audience, I think the audience will get a kick out of this story. Back in 2017, so Resident Evil 7, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Breath of the Wild all released like around the same month. This is post-Christmas, so I had some gift cards and some Christmas money, but I was a college kid, and so I didn't have any own personal money to spend outside for like rent and groceries and whatnot. So I had a choice to make. I was like, okay, I could only get 2 out of the 3 games because I had 2 GameStop gift cards. So I decided, obviously, I was going to get Resident Evil 7 because I am a Resident Evil fanboy, so that was already decided. So my choice was, okay, I can either get Andromeda or I can get Breath of the Wild. And I was like, well, you know, I'm really excited for Mass Effect, so I decided at that time to get Andromeda over Breath of the Wild. And I brought it back to my dorm room, and I had a couple other friends that were huge Mass Effect fans, and we all sat down, and I put it in, we started playing it, and like within, I think, like 30, 45 minutes, we were like, oh my God, this is so boring. Like if you compare it to like how Mass Effect 1 started, where you had like the first mission where you're being evaluated for Spectreship, and the one Spectre Turian gets killed by Saren, and then a Reaper shows up. Like that's a great first mission.
Yeah, like Mass Effect 2 just happens.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2 starts with the Normandy being blown up and you dying, and so that's like a great intro. Or Mass Effect 3, where you're telling the Council like, hey, Reapers are like 2 seconds away. We need to do something, and then the Reapers invade Earth, and the first mission is you escaping Earth. Like all of those are 3 great ways to start the series. Whereas Mass Effect Andromeda, I don't even remember how it began. That's how boring it was. I just remember like just sitting there like, this is terrible.
Yeah, you like sit on the ship and then it's like, yeah, go talk to a bunch of people. You go talk to a bunch of people. Some weird thing happens, and then your brother or your sister, depending on who you pick to play as, is now comatose. And you're like, oh no. And then you go to the planet, I think. for some reason.
I forgot you had a sibling. I completely forgot you could have a sibling in that game.
God, I think Donkey's video on Mass Effect Andromeda is probably the best experience on what the game is like. You just have these dead-faced, terrifying how dead-faced they are, NPCs. You have these limp dick like one-liners that just don't land. God, it's just so
like when that one
could have been good.
I remember that one. I believe your dad dies after the first mission, and the one lady, like one random lady that starts like, so you had just lost your dad, so obviously, like realistically, your character should be an emotional wreck.
Yeah,
your dad died in front of you, and the lady like starts screaming at you, like, "How could you let this happen?" And I believe like the famous line, she's like, "Sorry, my face is just tired from all this." I think I remember that being a line, and everyone was like, "Really? Like that's like, come on."
You know,
I just remember such a terrible game. Really is a terrible game.
They tried to make they were like, oh yeah, you're gonna choose everything about this character, right? That's what they wanted to do, because you got to choose what your relationship with your father was. Like, was he a hard ass? Was he good? Was he an actual father? Like, you got to say those things when you talk to other people, but they weren't like in like the original Mass Effects. They were, oh, you say it this way, this way, this way, and that matters. There's like, you can just say this comment, and then you could say it completely opposite to somebody else. Like, it didn't actually change anything. And of course, it was your dad, and he already died. So what would it change anyway? I don't know. I didn't get far enough to beat it, so who knows if there was anything that mattered about that. But they had something, and they could have grown with that. Like Andromeda 2 would have been such a solid game, like just on the concept. If they just the combat was solid, they didn't really need to change much. Do the regular sequel thing where you add something new that keep you interested, but then like you're on a single system. Maybe you found something that's similar to a mass relay that takes you to another system. Or you just make every single planet full of life, which seems a little weird, but they had so many directions they could have gone, and the multiplayer could have been fun, and I actually would have played it, as long as EA didn't say, hey, you have to pay us and Xbox if you want to play this online, which is what they did for 2, which was stupid. Those takes.
What was funny was if you remember, like half the races weren't even in the game. Like Quarians weren't there, Solarians weren't there, because they were gonna have them come out as DLC.
Yeah, because they gutted the game.
Yeah, they specifically took them out of the game so they could come in as DLC, and then the game flopped and they iced it. So there's like some of the favorite races are gone. Like I know Solarians aren't there, Quarians aren't there, the Volus aren't there, and some other races too, but because they gutted them and they're gonna do all this DLC, and then nope, never mind. We're bad company,
right? Like if they were saying, okay, we're gonna sell this game at like $40, right, and we're going to include like $15 to $20 story DLCs that added to the story instead of doing sequels, like they did a kind of a chapter-based thing that just built up, that would have been passable as an idea if they didn't botch it from the get-go. The issue with that sort of thing is because of, maybe we didn't talk about this in the last one, but how things are now digital. You don't get hard copies of things so much anymore. So you need hard drive space. So if you're playing on a Xbox and their newest, dumbest name scheme, the newest one, and then the PS5, you're going to run out of space trying to just add all these pieces of this one game together. So if you run out of space and you can't delete the beginning of the game because it's part of the game, like you now have like 300 gigabytes of data. And unless you got a terabyte storage and 200 of that's not taken up by the operating system for some fucking reason, then you're just out of luck. Go find another game to delete.
Whoever's coming up with the names for the Xbox consoles is on drugs. Like you've got the original Xbox, which okay, it's fine, Xbox, and then you got Xbox 360 because we're going full circle. Like I like that. And then they got Xbox One. Like I think what? And then they go back and it's like you're calling yourself Xbox One, but you're not even okay. And then the next one is Okay, we're Xbox Series X. Like, wait, no.
And then the Series S, and then the One X, and then what? No, stupid.
The next one's gonna be the Xbox 360 X. I bet something like that.
The Xbox 720, which they should have just done that. They should just here's the Xbox 1080. Guess what? Everything's HD now, so it's perfect.
I mean,
Xbox 4K.
PlayStation has it right, just going by numbers. Like this PlayStation 1, then 2, then 3, 4, 5.
Right?
I don't know who's coming up with the Xbox names, but they're just psychotic. And also, I don't know how you feel about console designs, but there are some consoles like, okay, for example, the Xbox One, like the very first release of the Xbox One looks like a damn VHS player. Like it looks like a VHS player, and it's heavy as shit.
Yeah, it's just a block.
And then you've got in my opinion, I think the PS5 is a terrible design. It does not look good. I think compared to I think the PS4 had a great design. Like how it was kind of like a slanted, like I guess kind of like a semi-pyramid almost.
No, it's just like a rhombus rectangular prism kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I think the PS5 has a terrible design. I think I actually kind of like the Series X design, how it's a small rectangle. But there's just some console designs that just piss me off. Like the Xbox One is a terrible design. Honestly, I think the way the Switch was made, not the actual handheld part, but like the dock for the Switch is terrible. I don't know if you had to do this, but when I bought this, when I got the first Switch,
oh yeah,
the back of it, I took it out of the dock a total of 3 times, and because I wanted to be super gentle with it, I took it out very slowly, put it back very slowly. Those 3 times alone, the back of my Switch already had permanent scuff and scrapes on it. So what I had to do is I went down to a Michael's, got a thing of felt, cut out felt strips, and put them on both sides of where the dock sits, so that it would no longer get scraped. And I've seen videos of like the back and the glass part of the Switch having scratches from pulling it in and out of the dock. Yeah, terrible design.
Definitely not sure what they were thinking, not having like felt strips or something already in there to soften it. Yeah, that was kind of silly, especially because it was still a little wobbly. Like it fit snug on the USB-C, right? But it was still enough space so that it wouldn't easily get scratched. But they had these little like what do you call them? They're like little spacer things that are supposed to hold it more steadily in place that were just hard plastic.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, well, like when you put those strips in, now you have to like push it down and then like kind of hold down the actual dock when you lift it up, because now it's a little too snug, but at least it's not scratching the damn thing.
Yeah. And then we don't even need to talk about the Joy-Cons, talk about a design failure.
And the drift, and yeah. I love the idea. It was such a good idea, but they just needed to fix their hardware, and it would have been an 8 out of 10 console. Like they just needed to fix those controllers. It would have been a 9 out of 10, and then if they actually made it powerful, it would have been a 10 out of 10. If they made a Steam Deck out of the Switch, it would have been fine.
I like how Nintendo's response too, because they did acknowledge like the drift, but their response was, "Oh well."
They're $70 controllers each.
That's my, we talked about gaming hot takes a few minutes ago. That's my hot take. I hate the Switch. I think it is an overrated console. I think when I was playing it, like when I was consistently playing it, most of the games that I was playing was Wii U re-releases. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as much as I love it and think it's great, it is by definition a Wii U re-release, considering it started on the Wii U. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Wii U re-release. I was playing Bayonetta 2 all the time. That started on the Wii U. And you can even argue, you could theoretically argue that Breath of the Wild was a Wii U re-release because it released on the Wii U as well, although they released the same day, so I don't know if you can, that might be cheating. But I think the Switch is an overrated console. I would even say I had more fun with the Wii U originally than I did with the Switch, but that's because I at the time there was more party games for the Wii U, and I was in college, so I was playing these party games with my friends. But I think the only Switch exclusive games I was playing was Mario Odyssey, which is my favorite Switch game, and Super Smash Brothers, and Let's Go Eevee. Those are the three that I was consistently playing. But all the other games I had on my Switch at the time, and well, okay, I also had Mario Maker 2, which was fun.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But I think overall, like how I feel about the Switch now that it's almost 7 years since it's been out, I think it's a very overrated console. I think it has several design flaws. I hate what they did with the dock. I hated the Joy-Con so much. I remember I think when I got my first Switch, I bought a Pro controller like a week later. I was like, I hate holding these things.
I was probably most annoyed that there wasn't a default Pro controller. Like, they gave you the little thing that you can slide the Joy-Cons into, which was okay.
Yeah.
But the Pro controller, or I guess maybe because I bought a third, it wasn't supposed to be a third party. My Pro controller didn't have rumble. It didn't have a vibration feature at all. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I could have sworn that it was, what do you call it? Nintendo, when you endorsed an official, like, we endorsed this, buy this, and I didn't have vibrate. That was so mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I think that's my hot take, and I will stand by that. That I think the Switch, I know people love the Switch, and I think it's. I don't know. I still don't think it's. I'm pretty sure it's not the best-selling console of all time, but I know it's up there. It's like 2 or 3. But I think there's just so many missed opportunities with it. The fact that it's as underpowered as it is, and apparently the next Switch console, which is going to come out relatively soon, apparently is going to be about as powerful as the PS4, and an Xbox One is disappointing. Like, they're always a generation or two behind of like what's currently powerful.
Yeah. Now that they've got real competition in the portable whole console, not portable game pads like the Game Boy and DS, like a whole portable console, I think they're gonna have some trouble with that, because Steam Deck, and then there's is it Razer? I think they have their own. They have their own version of that. Like, there are now 3 portable consoles. 2 of them are far more powerful and more capable of doing other things. Why would you get a Switch if you can emulate a Switch on a Steam Deck and run just as well?
Even back when the Switch came out, like, I think the amount of time that I spent playing the game in handheld mode was probably 10 or 15% of the time that I had the console. Like, and that's just a me thing. Like, I'd much rather play in front of a TV or a computer screen than doing handheld anymore. When I was younger, like when I had a Game Boy and a DS, I was playing that all the time.
Yeah.
But I kind of think the handheld function's a little overrated these days. And I think there are a lot of people that I don't see people in public playing the Switch.
I think it's more geared toward,
it happened.
It didn't even get in. He just died. It's the Lance, or the Knight.
Oh, that's great. It happened.
So
what happens now? Is it gonna like re-blow itself up, or?
I don't know. It's probably gonna keep inching into the water until it finally gets in, but
That's great.
Maybe it'll just sink, or maybe it'll still float. I don't know.
That's great. That's awesome.
Anyway, I think the Switch's portability function is largely for Japan. I think portable gaming is so much more of a thing there, because based on what I know of the work culture and all that, like, going home, your home is there for you to sleep in and maybe eat, and then you leave and you go back to work, and you're pretty much out and about for 90% of the day. So you might as well take your console with you when you're on the subway, on a bus. Like, when you're out and about, that's when you have free time, not when you're at home, maybe before you go to bed. And of course, this isn't for the entirety of the population. This is just for large, I think, salary working position kind of things. Office workers, part-timers probably got plenty of time.
Yeah, the flamingo disappeared, by the way.
Oh, it just vanished?
It just boop out of existence.
Oh, man.
I bet another one will fall out of the sky. I'd have to bet.
That'd be kind of cool, actually.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think if you're just basing it on Japanese culture and Japanese lifestyle, that makes sense. But I still think, like, even taking that into regard, I think handheld culture with gaming is not as popular as it was when it was new in the 2000s and 2010s.
Sure.
I think back when the Game Boy and the DS were at their peaks, and the DS, also sold a lot of units. I think I'm fairly certain that the DS might be number 2.
Yeah,
If
DS
not the
was
Switch.
huge, and I think largely because of international. Well, for us, international sales. For them, probably
Yeah, so
domestic.
actually, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The PS2 is still reigning supreme, although it's, I think, oh man, the PS2 to this day has sold more than 155 million units. The DS, which I think they're also counting the 3DS in that family, the Nintendo DS family has sold to this day 154.2 million units. So it's actually almost close to surpassing the PS2. I don't think it will. And then the Switch, which is still ongoing, has sold 125.62 million units. So I don't think unless they count whatever new Switch update in the family, I don't think it's going to surpass the PS2 in its lifespan.
Probably not. No,
but
especially
yeah,
not that it's got real competition.
Yeah, the PS2 and DS are number 1 and number 2, and then the Game Boy and Game Boy Color are fourth at 118 million. So you can see that goes into my point that back then, when the Game Boy and the DS were in their heyday, they were extremely popular. And I feel like nowadays, and I could be wrong, but I just feel personally that handheld functionality is not as popular as it was 10, 20 years ago.
I mean, yeah, and a big reason for that I kind of forgot about is that we all have like supercomputers in our pockets. You know, we can play video. Excuse me. Wow. We can play video games on our phones. Especially when it comes to those older consoles. Like, I can play a DS game, I can play a Game Boy game, NES game, I can play a PS1 game, all on my phone. Probably even officially on the App Store. Like, you don't have to get a whole console for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big, large reason for why the handheld market is taking a back seat, is because you don't need a handheld. You've got your handheld. Why would you want another one to carry around with you? Just women don't have pockets, so how's that going to work?
Yeah, I agree. It is actually crazy thinking about it, how the PS2 is still to this day the number 1 best-selling console.
I guess it was just at the right place at the right time.
It really, I mean, having gone back these last 5-6 years and kind of re-experiencing all that I missed, because I grew up with Nintendo. I was a Nintendo kid. And then in high school, I was Xbox 360. I missed out on the PS2 growing up. So going back and really just re-experiencing all this stuff. And there were PS2 games that I played. Like I would borrow PS2s from friends, and that's like where I played most of the Silent Hill games I played growing up, from borrowing it from friends. Because there's no way my parents would let me buy Silent Hill growing up, so I would just borrow them from friends. Yeah. So I can see, going back and playing all these, why the PS2 is as popular as it is. It's just crazy that to this day it's still number 1. I wonder, because the DS is like less than 1 million units behind. I don't know. I don't know if the DS will ever pass the PS2, but it's as close as it's less than 1 million units. I just think because the DS probably isn't being produced anymore, they probably aren't even keeping track anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they're not into production, so those numbers shouldn't really go up because it's all resale at this point.
Yeah. Well, the DS got extremely close, and they're also counting the 3DS, so I don't know if that's cheating or not, but it is crazy. No, they're not counting the 3DS, because the 3DS, oh my goodness,
is even lower.
The Nintendo DS by itself sold 154 million units. That's crazy.
That's pretty amazing. That the 3DS I thought was a great idea that I think could have been refined to be even better. Like having something that you don't have to stick on your face to see in 3D. That sounds super cool. It just gave you a headache if you used it long enough. Yeah,
I feel like not many people were using the 3D aspect of the 3DS too.
Yeah, because it just hurt your face.
I think it became apparent like later on in the handheld's lifespan, like especially when, for example, when Pokemon Sun and Moon came out, I got that on release day, and I don't think there was any aspect of it that was like, oh, this is 3D. So I think near the end of its life cycle, there's like, yeah, we don't really care about 3D anymore.
Yeah, it was them doing their usual gimmick stuff.
What do you say we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think it's about time. We've got quite a few. We're at 39, almost at 40. We lost our flamingo monster pal. I don't know if we like him or not.
Let's since I did the head count last time, why don't you do the head count? And I think we got to start with our new ducks. I had the lava duck, and you had chameleon duck.
Yeah, so I think if I start with you, it should, do anything that happened after you joined, because when I made the thing and I paused it, everything came in afterwards. So this should be all ducks that came after you.
Yeah, and I see a bunch of new ducks. So go ahead, give us a head count.
So as you see, we've got our lava. If you want to see all the previous ones, then you should check out the last episode. Here we got that nice lava duck, molten. We've got baby babushka, or Russian nesting doll. We've got my stars. Looks glow in the dark, but I don't think it does.
I think no, I just think it's like the design. I think you're right.
Then we got black and white polka dot. Potted plant that, it's got a little smiley face on the plant.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even notice that. That's awesome.
It was just a pot, I think, when it came back, and with maybe a sprout, and then I think the rain made it grow out, which is kind of nice.
Deep lore. Okay.
And then we've got our knight here. What is it called when you got the pole? Yeah.
He's a jousting.
Jousting, yes, jousting
and
knight.
Slayer of flamingos.
Indeed, our hero or villain, depending on how you want to look at it. Is this a magnet? Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, negative. Yeah. Negative charged magnet duck. That puts us at Water Malone. Wait a minute. Then 8 Ball. Okay, so yeah, then we're back to cycling. Gym head. Yep. Cheese. Crying. Postage. Stitches. Strawberry. Agent Smith.
All these new ones here.
Yeah, well, that's the duck. So,
well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us on episode 3. Lucas, any last words?
No, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like these podcasts, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for more. I'm gonna try to keep uploading these on Wednesdays, so keep your eye out on Wednesdays at 11. But not actually. I think I'm posting it Western time at like 8 a.m., which I think is pretty early, or a bit later, maybe lunchtime for East Coast, United States. If you're on the rest of the world, you're gonna have to do the math yourself. I don't know.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.